go.
Good evening, everybody. Members of the board, it's my pleasure to introduce you, John Stricker.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
That's okay. Susan Duzon, nice to meet you.
I'm going to yell at my friend. I got John Stricker.
Ms. Zakowski, John, thank you for coming.
Okay, you're welcome.
That's Chuck Bucket down.
Are we supposed to do this?
Watch his nose, though.
All right. Very good.
Andy Goulet, nice to meet you.
All right, nice to meet you.
Sharon Stiltner, nice to see you, John.
Nice to see you.
Beth Engel, nice to meet you.
Welcome, and thank you for coming tonight. Can you tell us, John, what prompted you to apply for our superintendent's job?
Yeah, I figured that question would come up, and as we build trust with each other, the truth is I didn't know much about Algonac until my friend, who's the superintendent of Howell Public Schools, who has been trying to get me to go duck hunting for 10 years. Finally got me to go 3 years ago. I'm a thin guy, I'm a runner. The way he described it was you sit out on a boat in the cold, and you wait for these duck to come over, and you have to get up at 4 a.m. and so on. And I wasn't too keen on that, but finally he talked me into it. Last year I went again with him, and one of your community members, staff members, happened to be there, and to be quite frank about it, this person is a motivator. And this person went, of course, career came up, and basically this person motivated me to look into it. And when I did the research on your district, I was very interested. The job was posted, and when I went down through your candidate profile, it was exactly where I am in my career. This person motivated me to come visit for the weekend, and I visited for the weekend and had a chance to visit all the schools. I didn't get in every school building, but I got a chance to see all the facilities, eat dinner in your town, meet some people, and I'm very impressed. Even this evening, and I'm embarrassed to say, but I'll say it, what the heck, I had dinner at McDonald's, big spender.
Drive-through?
Thrifty.
Right.
And I had a chance to sit with a young lady who's one of your top students in your high school, and actually spend about 30 minutes with her. And so that even up to about a half hour ago or about an hour ago, I'm very impressed with your community. Where I am in my career, I was this is my 26th year. I was a technology director in a large district, about 5,000 student district, very successful, nationally recognized. And I know you're big into technology, and the young lady shared that with me. And so I have the technology experience. I was in Bay City Public Schools for 5 years, over operations, over transportation. We ran about 100 buses a day. I was over 26 buildings, over as many staff as you have in the school district with operations. I've been involved in curriculum my whole life as an educator. I was an industrial arts teacher, and at the time they were going from industrial arts to industrial technology, so even in 1988 in college I had to write my own curriculum to that of the state and federal benchmarks. And so when I look at your candidate profile, when I did the research, down to, and in all seriousness, having not dinner with the young lady, but it was after dinner, I asked if I could talk to her. And I spent a weekend in your community. I'm very impressed, and I think it's a match for where I am in my career. I've been a superintendent now going on 10 years, and I don't think we as a school district, I say we, not I, I've been surrounded by a great team. I have a great board, but I don't think we've been lucky for 10 years. For 10 years we've been the top district in the county, and so I just think it's a good match. So why Algonac? I like the community. So far the people I like have made me feel at home. It's similar to the community I grew up in, and I feel at home, and I think it's a good match.
What do you like about the community? When you were here, you spent some time.
People. That's the direct answer. The people. Down to the young lady I talked with, she was the nicest, sweetest young lady in the world. She was telling me about the IB program. Mm-hmm. Pros and cons. Pros and cons. And in this particular person that has motivated me to even be here, told me that you have a fundraiser it gives me chills. I'm an ex-coach, so it still even gives me chills telling the story, and I'm not even there yet. That at the end of the fundraiser, everybody sings the fight song. What a neat place to be. I'm an ex-coach, I'm still an athlete, still compete. So that's very specific. That's fun for me. That sounds like fun. Kind of team I'd like to be on.
John, how would the members of your community, in your current district, describe your community involvement?
Well, put it this way, last year at the local church, I shivered. The pastor says he's never seen someone shiver for 2 hours and survive. I was in the dunk tank at the church. I do everything, you know. We're a small community, and I live in town. And by the way, I know you can't ask that, but I would move to this community and be part of this community. That is key. That is the key to this position, no question. So I live there in town, and I know everybody. I've been there 10 years. I've watched these kids grow up. And so, of course, they're not bashful to ask me to do things. And so community involvement, I'll start with that one because it's fun. I shivered for 2 hours. It was inside, as a matter of fact, but it was very cold water. And again, I'm pretty thin. And so I'm always doing the dunk tanks. I give the speech every year at the Christmas tree. Even though sometimes I wonder if people are really listening and they just want me to say Merry Christmas because they're freezing and they want to go inside. Nonetheless, I do all those things. I'm in the Lions Club, and basically I'm at a school event every night. Our school district, we just won our 13th state title in wrestling, as a matter of fact, very sports oriented. And so there's a lot of athletic events, so I'm very involved in that. And so in my particular community, by being involved in athletic events, you're very involved. So I volunteer a lot, and just by living in town, I'm very involved. Down to every now and then I go down to the coffee shop, which again, our small community coffee shop is the landscaping business there at the corner, where the guys get together, and have coffee, and even those things. And you know, those things are very important to those communities. And so, but I do want to share with you because you know I'm coming from a district of 900 students. In Bay City schools, I was in charge of public relations. We had 10,000 students in some much bigger town. So I may be oversensitive, and so please accept my apology that I'm oversensitive that always coming from a small school. No, I was in Bay City School with 10,000 students, and I was in charge of public relations. So I was in the Kiwanis Club. I had always had speaking engagements and so on, a lot of dinners. Of course, in Bay City it was a broader scale. It wasn't going down so much to the local coffee shop, the landscaping place, as much as going to the different clubs and organizations. So I do understand that as well. And I see this district as a nice mix. I see this district as a district that probably has a place where the people get together in the morning and have coffee. I wouldn't mind letting the superintendent know what they think. I always think, the last thing before I shut the door, I always say, hey, thanks for the guidance, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for helping me run the district. And they always laugh. So I want to point that out as well.
You may have touched on some of mine, but we'll get into some more specifics, okay? In a community like ours, the school is the most important thing we have. And with that comes all the extracurricular activities, and they're important to the entire community. And the athletic activities. So what role would you, as a superintendent, have regarding these events? And if you could give me some examples of how you've supported these programs.
Well, I'm very pleased that since I've been in New Lothrop, our arts have really been developed. Early on, I was in our school play a few times. So that's being involved, I think. I was actually in the play. And so, you know, I'm very involved, whether it be the arts, music, drama, certainly athletics are very important. And basically, you have me as a school district. You have me during the week. But I do prioritize my family, and I feel that I know that I'm in a community that would respect that. My family is very important. However, I will point out that my son's 23. He's a senior at Eastern Michigan. He's a runner, type A. You can see I'm probably coming off high energy. He's just like me, very high energy. And then I have a daughter that attends MSU. I love my children the same, by the way. They're both seniors. She's more like a hippie, pretty laid back, sweet angel. She's a sweet girl. And boy, that's on TV. I don't know. My daughter may be able to see that, but I'm at a point where I can spend a lot of time and devote a lot of time to the job because my kids are going to be, hopefully, on their own soon. They, in theory, after college, they should be on their own. So, but I understand that, and I come from a community where that's expected. But the thing about it is, I like it. That's fun for me. I guess I'm not a person that sits. I think you're probably seeing that in the first 5 minutes here. I'm not a person that sits in front of the TV. I'd rather be at the game. So I get complimented on that. It's a high score in my evaluation. You can talk to my board members and board presidents. I have letters from them, and you're welcome to call them. It's a high score, and they compliment me on that, and I take the compliment, but in my head I'm like, I like it. Why wouldn't I want to be at the basketball game where I watch these kids grow up for 9 years? They're my kids. I know them by name. And the next morning I stand in the hallway at the high school almost every day without exception. And nice game, Joe. Nice game, Mike. Good job, Betty. And so on. And guess how much that means to those kids and their parents. That I really do care about them like that. So I'm very involved because I like it, but it's a very important part of what we do. By the way, we had the highest graduation rate again in the county. We had 0 dropouts. We believe we had 1, but they had us at 0 dropouts. And over the 4 years, almost 98% graduation. That is not by accident as well. We know our kids. I know the question was involvement. Involvement from your leader is very important. And I don't think those results are accidents.
John, can you give us a situation or example when you weighed the pros and cons of a situation and decided not to take action even though you were under some pressure to do so?
Yes, recently I've had some pressure from community members to release a certain employee, and certainly this employee has things that they can work on. I've been working with this particular employee, and there's been improvement. And there was quite a bit of pressure as I weighed the pros and cons of, moving forward on releasing them or not releasing them, but I decided not to because it wasn't the right thing. This person was on an improvement plan, and they were showing an improvement, and it's ended up being the right decision. This person has really come around, and there's a lot of compliments about this person's performance. And there was a lot of pressure. We're a small town, and so there was a lot of pressure. And I sit back. I not only weigh the pros and cons, but I want you to know this about me with my problem solving. I consult with people. I take my time. I really don't shoot from the hip. I don't think I'd be a superintendent going on 10 years if I ever shot from the hip of weighing pros and cons. So when I'm weighing those pros and cons, I want you to know that I'm seeking advice. I'm looking at data. I'm using information. So on your question, I want you to know I just don't sit there, pros and cons, pros and cons. No, it's pretty systematic of how I approach that. And you know what? When you approach it that way and try to take the emotions out,
Right, it's important.
you betcha. You got to remove the emotions. I've had some very good fortune with my decision making regarding that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
John Chuck Busatell, who are the most important groups of people in the school district, and how would you plan to reach out to them?
That's a trick question, isn't it? Board of Education. So, no, important, I don't have to yell, do I?
No,
No.
My kids go, "Why are you yelling on the cell phone, Dad? You don't have to yell on that." There's a lot of important groups, and do you care if I use a handout? And I know I can't get that through the TV there, but I want to, if you don't mind, leave you with something, because the decision you're making tonight is for your next leader, and for hopefully quite some time. And so I do want to leave you with some information when I provide answers like this. There's a lot of key groups within a community, and I know you can't see that, so I'll read them to you.
Thank you.
Certainly the Board of Education is a key group, and I'll skip down. But this is a 100-day plan of once, if and when, I guess I'm being optimistic there, once hired by you as your school leader, even before the start date of July, I believe this is critical, especially with finances and some serious issues that are being dealt with this school and all schools. There's key groups, and the key groups are elected officials, business owners, clergy, key community opinion shapers, and I want to stop on that just for a second. Each community has quiet leaders. Your leaders aren't your ones on the podium. I have learned in life, in my 47 years of living, that you have your quiet leaders. You have your people in each community that when that person talks, you notice everyone listens, but they don't talk all the time. And so that is very specific, that one in there. And that's where I would use your help as a Board of Education, because coming into this community, I know very few people. So I'll rely very heavily upon you, the Board of Education, at first and say, hey, who are our quiet leaders? Maybe it's a retired teacher that everyone had. She was a kindergarten teacher and everyone loves her, everyone respects her. Old, Mrs. Jones, everyone listens to Mrs. Jones. Maybe that's one of those leaders. And I would find it within my first 100 days and on a regular basis to meet with that person, are those people. Police and fire personnel, especially in light of the safety issues that, heaven forbid, one of those issues would happen here, but in light of Sandy Hook over a year ago, those are very key officials to meet with right away regarding safety. Chamber officials and civic club officials like the Lions Club. Lions Club is a club I would like to join right away because I'm a Lions Club member in New Lothrop. So those are key people that I would reach out to. And also you can see that I would set up meetings, of course, with the associations and students. Within the first 100 days and on a regular basis, I would actually rotate schools and eat lunch with the students. At least a couple times a week. In the morning, I would be visible at the buses at one of the school buildings, and in the evening. So being very visible and just meeting with a variety of people, I think would be very important.
Thank you, John.
Sorry you cannot see the handout, but that's the gist of the handout.
We'll have it emailed to you directly.
John, do you believe we have, there's a current crisis in school funding? And if you believe there is or isn't, could you give us some suggestions on a resolution?
If I have those answers, I probably will be a multi-millionaire very soon, won't I? I did happen to study your budget situation through your budget presentation, and you're, by the way, you're no different than 80% of the schools in our state, unfortunately, and I bet in our country. I can't say that qualified, but I believe in our country that are facing some very financial challenging times. When I look around though in New Lothrop, I'm very careful though, not to say that state of Michigan, they need to give us more money. Because when I look at my neighbors in New Lothrop, they're taking pay cuts. They're losing benefits. They're losing jobs. So I'm very, very, very careful to not say, well, poor me, we need more money in public education. So to answer your question, what have I done for the past, and by the way, our school district we're the only school district in the county, and it's not I, it's been a team effort, that has maintained a fund balance of 15 to 20% in my past 10 years. So I just want to qualify my answer. And the answer to that regarding finance is being a very detailed person, understanding your finance and the communication of that. You guys do an excellent job communicating the situation. The answer, though, it's going to be a team.
Do you think there is a crisis?
There,
Is it statewide, or do you think it's just some individual school?
I think we have a statewide financial issue. I don't personally call it a crisis, but this is my personality, and you're getting to know me in this 1 hour. I don't call it a crisis. I call it a situation that, let's lay it on. Again, I try to separate emotions. I don't want to use the word crisis. I want to say, here's our financial situation. Bring in the associations, bring in like you're doing it. You're doing a good job of it. Bring in the right people at the table and say, we have a situation here. I'm not going to call it a crisis. I'm gonna say we have a situation, here's the facts, and here's what we need to do. So I think we have a statewide problem, but no, I'm not using the word crisis. I think we're very intelligent people and we can figure it out and sticking together.
Are you involved with your representatives in Lansing, in the
Yeah,
district that you are now?
I actually take pride that one of our local representatives calls me, actually. And the reason why is I treat him with respect. When I talk to him, I'm not always bombarding him. He knows, kind of like that quiet leader, he knows when I call him, it's sincere, it's not just an ongoing complaining or a relentless, you need more, help us out. It's very specific. So I am involved to the point where I take pride that he will actually call me specifically, personally, for advice on different issues at the legislative level. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of the tough financial times, when making cuts and budget reductions, what are your top 3 priorities and why?
Well, of course, your top priority is students. And with that, I guess, as we're coming up with a list here, programs, but really everything involves students. And so my chart that I use, of course, at the core has students. And then you have your staff. But that all goes hand in hand. It's your people. They're all part of that. So for the bullet list, to answer your question, it'd be students, programs, and staff, but I know there's staff members sitting behind me. And that's what's so tough about these interviews. I have a 1-hour snapshot of me right now. And so I want them to know that I would work very hard to build a relationship with them. And I take pride in New Lothrop that they're upset with me sometimes. Of course, the Teachers Association is not always happy with me, but I tell you what, they work together. And at the end of the day, back to your question, at the end of the day, what I have going for me is that they know I love those children. They know that when making tough business decisions, non-emotional, I'm sorry, I'm using my non-emotional, because that was that question, but non-emotional business decisions, they know that I love the children. That takes time to build that relationship with the staff member sitting out there. Because right now, I'm just a guy in a suit that's coming in with this nice new tie and giving the bullet point answers. But again, that's why I hope you look hard when I walk out of here in this short time that we have together, that in a small community, actually they renewed my 3-year contract last night and had a good evaluation and a great relationship with that board. I couldn't get away with just saying it and not doing it. I would be called out on that in 10 years if I had just said the right bullet point answers and didn't do them. So children first, and staff and community, of course, all together.
Thanks.
How would you go about introducing yourself to our community and staying in touch with community members and maintaining visibility in the district?
And the 100-day plan has a lot of that on there. And so, and I won't rehash all that, but just to expand, if I may.
Right.
There's no secrets to success like that. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. You're successful people, I understand that. That it's hard work. You get off your rear end and you get out there and you like the question I had as far as community involvement, being at ball games but one thing that I've learned, and I had to learn it because you can see my personality. I'm a high energy person, and one thing I've really worked on, and I don't know if the question will come up of a weakness or what have you, is to focus in and be with that one person at that one time. That while I'm at a ball game, and there's a lot of people that want to talk to me, if I've sat down with you and I'm getting to know you and your family and something about your children or something you're going through, and you're one of my community members, I'm with you. And I'm talking to you and I'm focusing with you. And you know what? You get to know people one at a time. I understand the scope of your district. And if I would have understood that, what I just described when I was in Bay City schools, it would have been the same thing in a community with several thousand people, 10,000 students, and so on. One person, there are times when, I give public speeches and that whole thing. And I do a lot with the media and so on. But one person at a time. Because if I take time to get to know you, and it's authentic, and you feel that I'm really getting to know you and care about you. Next time I see you, hey, how's your aunt doing, or whatever the situation you were telling me about. That's where you really get that ownership. Could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I answered that.
It's how would you go about introducing yourself to our community, introducing yourself in our district, and then staying in touch with various stakeholders?
And really, the written answer is the 100-day plan.
Okay.
John, you talked about staff and being concerned about their needs a couple questions ago. All staff in the district. How do you keep morale up for all staff in the district in tough times?
It's hard. It's a challenge. There's no shortcut. It's a lot. It's a redundant, really, probably some of my answer to where the best I've done with morale as a leader, and Bay City Schools are in New Lothrop, is just building a relationship with people, building trust and respect. That when you're making those tough decisions, again, actually this ties to a lot of questions, but they know, the staff know that I care about children at heart, and that's where those decisions are coming from. That's how you keep morale up, as far as from the leadership standpoint. But as far as the school district, you still need to have some fun. So we still, for example, we have a big deal at Christmas with our staff. At the end of the year, we have a picnic on our last day of school. And those were things I refused to cut. Those were things I refused to cut. Why? Because even in the midst of cuts, we have to live and enjoy each other. We're still alive, and Christmas is still time to celebrate. And at the end of the school year, hopefully it's not snowing in May, and we can go outside and have ourselves a picnic. And during that, a lot of times I grill, even though they kicked me off the grill because I didn't do a good job with it. They say I did it on purpose, but anyway. You know what? You still need to have fun. And so no matter how challenging, referring to the budget question about a crisis or the issue and where this is as far as with money, I think they probably had fun during the Depression. I think they probably still celebrated Christmas during the Depression and enjoyed each other's company. So it is possible. It can be done. Attitude.
Thank you.
What communication systems or techniques do you use in the position of superintendent to keep the community, staff, school board, and students informed about school?
I've written several communication plans even for other school districts. In Bay City Public Schools, it was my, in a large district, it was one of my areas I was responsible for. This is the shell of it. There's a lot more detail that goes with it, so I'll leave you with a communication plan. But a communication plan does indeed, let me pass this out first. There you go. There's key facets to any,
Thank you, John.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John.
My propaganda. So if you turn the first page, and I won't take too much time on this, but you can see that you have your parents and students, you have your staff, and you have your community. So could you please ask the question again? I want to make sure I'm very specific in answering.
Right. What communication systems or techniques do you use
Okay.
to get this message?
So those are the main groups, and then you can see the systems within each group. So I certainly encourage our building principals to expand upon this. This is the shell, again, I call it the shell. This is the big picture from the Board of Education and from me as superintendent. But by all means, my principals are encouraged to go above and beyond and certainly tie those gaps and bring us together, whether it be the parent, student, or the community, or the staff. But those are the several areas that I focus in. And one nice thing about a communication plan to you, the Board of Education, is I'm held accountable to these areas. And you know what? When I review this, when I'm going to give a report to the board, we're being very open, very direct. There are times I'm like, gee whiz, I'm pretty weak in that area, right? You know, what did I what have I done in the past couple months in regard to that? And so this is a nice system that I have in place even for myself, answering to you, the Board of Education, to make sure that I am indeed following through on the communications that I have told you that we are doing. And so I'll admit to you, there's times that, you know what, ooh, that's been dropped, I need to pick this up a little bit better, I need to do better in this area.
Okay, the second part to that, and you just touched part of it, but tell us about your accountability to the Board of Education, to staff, community, and students.
Yeah, so, yeah, and so I won't waste their time as far as, you know, I know I've answered that, but as the superintendent, I don't say this like I'm the #1 educator, but you know what, I take responsibility that I am the #1 educator of the school district. I am the lead teacher, so to speak, lead educator of the school district, and I take that very serious. So ultimately, I'm accountable for everything. And I don't know if we'll get to our board goals section, but I do have another handout here I can leave with you when we're done if we don't get to that question, to where each month I present to the Board of Education in our goal areas. And communications, of course, is one of those. Public relations was one of them. Staff morale is one of them. And student achievement and safety, security, technology, and so on. And so how am I accountable? Each month I read a report to you as board members of where I am as the school #1 educator in each area. So that forces me to be accountable, again, even if there are areas that, you know what, not much was done in that area last month, here's what I plan on doing. And so I'm very systematic, very pragmatic when it comes to those the piece as far as about accountability. But I take great ownership of that, and I take great pride of the results as well.
John, just to embellish on that question, do you use a lot of information going out on websites or on the school? Do you do a lot in the technology area, getting your accountability and messages out to the public?
I do both, and I've had a lot of people appreciate, like on my parent letter that goes out quarterly, I still send out a letter. However, we will post, like each month, for example, each month I write an article to the newspaper, and then I post it myself. I just do it myself with my space on the webpage. And so my answer to you is both. I still feel there's a facet of people that still like to get that hard copy letter and sit down and read it by the lamp. But maybe the younger people out there are probably like, this guy needs to needs it. I have 2 children. They're 22 and 23. Don't worry that they're like, Dad, you're old-fashioned. You need to get with the time. So for me, it's a combination of both technology and older means.
Thank you.
John, have you been involved in a bond or millage campaign as superintendent?
Thanks for asking me that question. I still take pride that our community, I still believe for a 7.17 mil increase, had the highest yes vote in the state of Michigan. I still have not seen one. We had a 76% yes vote for a 7.1 mil increase. And so I take great pride in that for our community. I'm not taking all credit. When I say I take pride, it's just as a leader, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our community. So please do not say that it wasn't me. I was fortunate enough to be the leader in that. Actually, leadership technique on that. What I found at the end of the day when everyone was celebrating what was neat to me as I evolved as a leader, I was in the background. I watched everyone feel that they did it, and they did do it. And so it was a really neat experience for me in my leadership involvement to understand that the true leaders, when something like that's accomplished, they're in the background. They're not out front. They're in the background. And it was a neat night for us where we met as a community. We were very scientific of how we approached it. We had our yes voters identified, and we made sure that they got and voted, and we had a great success. So yes, I've been a part of a program of designing a building and renovations to another building, complete renovations, and all the way through the bond, and even a step further than that. Accountable to the community that every dime that they said we were going to spend it this way, we spend it that way.
That's important.
And so even, you bet it is. Because guess what? We've passed 4 elections in New Lothrop since I've been there. two non-homestead millages, a technology bond, and then that facility bond. It's important because it's the right thing to do.
Of course.
If you spend a lot of money, I should be following through on it. But on the selfish side from the school district, it was important because guess what? When we went for those other millages, proof is in the pudding. Because we passed those other millages. When we went back to the community, our community did show us, you know what? That school district says they're gonna do this, they're gonna do this, I can count on it. That was very important. That trust was very important. So yes, we've had 4 elections successful.
You had mentioned that you identified the voters and went after those.
Yeah.
Any other key strategies you used that you feel was very important besides that?
Ongoing communication. Ongoing communication. I think I was presenting every night. Every night they would tease me. Even for Halloween, I dressed up in if there's some serious people back there, they're gonna be like, who you hire this clown? Anyway, but I'm proud of it. For Halloween, I dressed up as a vote yes ballot and went around and with the kids and got candy at the houses, and I was a vote yes ballot. So you know what? There was a lot that we did, and we had fun with it. So yes, it wasn't just identifying the yes voters. It was that, like when you get together for your fundraiser and sing the school song. It was that spirit. And so there were a lot of pep sessions, so to speak, a lot of meetings, but we had fun with it, and the outcome was awesome.
Great, thank you.
John, what experiences do you have as a personnel contract negotiator? Is your experience lied as a lead negotiator, or are you just a member of the team and someone else takes the lead?
I'm technically the lead negotiator representing the Board of Education. However, in New Lothrop, we do have 3 board members that sit on that negotiation team. So again, as far as leadership style, as you get to know me, I'm not everybody look at me, I'm the leader, I'm gonna sit in this chair, I'm up front. It wasn't that at all. It was, technically I do represent the board at the negotiation table and have for the past 9 years in New Lothrop. In Bay City Schools, I was over maintenance, transportation, and technology, and the support aspects of our district. And so, yes, I was representing, but we had more layers of Bay City Schools. So I was representing administration as the lead negotiator when I was in Bay City Schools. So yes is the answer.
In New Lothrop, you mentioned school board members. What about staff? Did you have staff members on your team?
I have staff members as needed. I've had my building principals sit in as needed. Actually, last night we did have a negotiations prep session with the Board of Education, and I had my bookkeeper in there. And so I will have staff as needed, but that staff have not really been along, except for there were a couple years that we settled pretty quickly, and that I think my building principals, or at least my one building principal, who's my curriculum director as well, I believe he was there in the third session. I believe so. So it has been both, but mostly as needed, as necessary.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you know why I follow up on that is, I want to make sure with certain people in the district that because negotiations can get pretty tight and can sometimes get personal and emotional. And so I wanted to protect certain people from it possibly being an emotional situation because they had to work with those people. So, I was very conscientious about that.
John, was that your idea to have board members on the negotiating
No.
team, or was that implemented back before you came?
That's how we do it.
That's how you, do you feel that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's worked for us, and I look at results. Again, we're and I'll get off that high horse, but we are proud of that as a district during these financial times. But we've maintained that fund equity of 15 to 20% when all the schools in our county have gone, most of them under 5%. And so I'm an outcomes person. As I shared with you earlier, I try to remove the emotions and look at the outcomes. And our outcomes have been pretty good. And you know what? I have to give credit to our labor union leaders. They've been very fair. And one key aspect of that, by the way, is when I go over the budget monthly, I was thinking a budget question would come up. But my process going over the budget monthly from about Christmas on is I have literally union leadership sit there with myself and my bookkeeper when we go over the budget monthly. building that trust. And I think that's also part of the success when we get to the table. People trust the data
Right,
because they've been there the whole time.
yeah,
And so,
thank you.
John, you had, excuse me, mentioned a number of activities that you do to keep you active in the community, et cetera. Is there any activities or methods that you use to keep involved and engaged with the students in the school as you are a superintendent?
and I would do the same here, understanding there's more school buildings, understanding that. I did the same in Bay City with 23 buildings. So I'm conscientious about a small school, but every day with almost without exception, I stand at the buses in the morning where our buses come in. And here I would rotate schools. And then I go in to the elementary periodically and I'll do the morning announcements. And then I'll make my way over to the high school, or I'll go over to the high school if I'm over in the elementary longer. And I'll stand in that hallway and say hi to the students. I do meet with the senior class on a regular basis. I've done that all 9 years. I look at my senior class and I would do the same here, working of course with your building principal. So if the building principal's out here, it's not a power play when I come in, it's working with that building principal. And I meet with the senior class and we talk about a variety of issues. Right now with my seniors in New Lothrop, we're talking about attitude about life and so on and so on. So I actually meet with the senior class on a regular basis. And know what else that does? When they walk off that stage, I stand at the end, because that's the end product and I'm the one accountable for that end product. And each one of them, most of them it's hugs, because I've known these kids for a long time. And I get a hug from almost every one of them, or at least a handshake or whatever. And I've spent time with those kids, they know me and I know them. And I know how many seniors you have in your class here, by the way. And shame on me if I can't memorize that many students as well. That goes a long way. That goes a long way. And so I focus on all students, but I take very seriously the senior class, even as superintendent. And I want you to know I understand the business aspect needs done. I don't abandon the business aspect of what I need to do. But that's my end. At the end of the day, let's even say we have 25% fund equity. So what if our end product isn't what we want? And so I focus on that end product and I spend time with that end product, the senior class.
How many students are in the senior class in your district?
It ranges. We've ranged. It's typically anywhere from 60. We have a couple classes of 90 coming through. So, but again, I can memorize 200 names as well.
All right, thanks.
And shame, you shouldn't probably hire me if I couldn't do that. But don't quiz me.
Actually, before you leave.
Set myself up, didn't I? What's that kid's name?
Thank you.
John, as a superintendent, what statewide legislative issues that are under consideration or are being implemented are ones that you're keeping a close eye on or particular interest to you? Probably more than a couple.
Take a deep breath, John. You get a little bit upset sometimes with the ongoing changes from the legislature. Right now, the evaluation piece, and I'm actually meeting with our teachers to make sure that they know, and it's back to that trust issue, that as superintendent I filter a lot that comes from the state and federal government of what's relevant of what we want to do. And so I've built a relationship with the teachers, but they still need reminded because they're nervous. I don't blame them. My sister teaches in Indiana. I'm on camera, so I won't go on one of my rants about they're tying all of the teacher pay and everything to my sister's test score. Now she can't focus on extracurricular and do some art projects, and it just makes me upset. It makes me upset. So my job as superintendent is to filter a lot of that and what's relative to our school, and certainly meeting state and federal requirements. I'm not breaking the law, but I'm watching that very closely because people are nervous about them. And you know what? Is a teacher effective if they're nervous? Is my sister effective if she's nervous? And all she's worried about is delivering this content on this I-STEP test? And no. My sister is not. I know I can say I can use my sister as an example. No, she's not at her best. She's a nervous wreck, and it's taken away from her teaching. And so I'm watching that very closely, and of course I'm watching the testing piece. I had to bring a chart with me tonight as a cheat sheet of just, I pulled out if we needed it, but of the testing piece, that the state right now doesn't even know what we're doing for next fall. You probably would fire me if I ran I'm calling it our district, excuse me. But if I get hired and ran this district that way, you should probably fire me. John, what are we doing next year for our test? Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure, we got a few things going here. Here's a chart, we may do these. I'm going on one of my rants, aren't I? I'm watching those two issues, and you can see I'm passionate, and it upsets me because I see what it's doing to our teachers. And I want my teachers to be relaxed, having fun, because you know what? Don't kid yourself, and I'm sure there's some teachers out there, that flows down to those students. Don't kid yourself that nervousness that seems to be created from the legislature is flowing down to those students, and shame on that. And so I do the best I can as a superintendent to filter that and see what's relevant, what I need to do to be compliant, and communicate that to my staff. But I'm watching those two issues.
You've fit in a lot of things that I'm going to ask you, and you've talked about community involvement and what you've done with the kids in the community. So this question is really, you've answered it already, but if you were selected for this position, how would you see yourself fitting into this community?
I did kill duck the times I went. Does that help? I mean, it
helps.
I'm telling you, I was freezing. It was the day before Thanksgiving this year, so I don't know if you remember that day in your mind. But I want you to know I'm a gamer, and I did step up and I got one of the people in the boat. I won't mention his name. And they were like, "Good, he got one. Let's go in."
And you ate at one of our McDonald's.
Yeah, right.
I think that might be the only one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And all kidding aside, I go back to that. I would love to get this position, and one of the first things I'll do. When is that fundraiser where everyone sings the school fight song?
That's
Well,
June.
we just had a big fundraiser.
But where they sing the song though?
June 8th.
June 8th, and I will personally invite you to the finest fundraiser on the planet.
Get out my wallet. Get out my wallet.
Yeah.
I think you can see. I think that would fit in. That's fun. It really gives me chills. That's exciting. That's neat. I've been an athlete my whole life. I still compete at state and national level actually, and I'm into that. I love that. And I love that team spirit because at the end of the day, actually an emotional thing for me. I have a custodian that's dying of cancer, and I go out to see him it's tough on me. I go out to see him every week, and it really is putting in perspective of those moments when we're singing the fight song. Mm-hmm. Those moments of fitting into the community and getting and having coffee with the I won't say the guys, get myself in trouble. But in this particular group, it's a group of guys down at the corner. Spending time with this custodian and is really changing my life even more to where, you know what, grab those moments and enjoy them. I think I would fit in this community and everything I've heard about this community and this person that I'm referring to, I want you to know he is a believer in your community. I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And so I'm ready to strap on my helmet.
Thank you.
My last question for you, Mike, can you describe a way that you have used data to make curriculum decisions that have enhanced student achievement?
Yeah, and I'll go quickly, and I won't go over all the bullet points, but we're very specific regarding our curriculum changes. And by the way, just for the teachers that are out there, administrators, it's a curriculum process that the teachers and administrators have ownership of. And you can call them in both very public schools. And so what I'm showing here, and I'm just trying to save time because I know we're could be under time crunch here, but so what I'm going to show you as far as using the data is a process, the ownership, which should be, who should the ownership be for instruction? It's the person doing the job. It's the teachers and administrators. And so, but we're very specific in our data. This is our annual plan, and you can see that we're very specific on the achievement gaps that we need to close. While our test scores we're pleased, we're pretty good. We're very specific about achievement gaps that we want to close, and we're very specific of how we want to measure those. And I won't read those to you, but they begin You know, I was going as long as I could without being the old man, but I do wear glasses, so bear with me here. They begin on page, actually I'm on page 14, no, page 15. So we're very specific about using data from test, but I want you to know when I say using data, it's not just test scores, it's not just the quantitative data, it's qualitative data. It's talking to people, because a test score only says so much. So we had some areas that we wanted to focus on, but we go to those teachers and talk to them. And know what we found? We found that we were doing very well in elementary, and you have a similar situation, if I may say. And then when the students were getting to high school, their scores weren't consistently as high. Something was happening. And so if I were just a quantitative guy and I'm just using numbers and I'm just sitting in my office in central office and using numbers, I would not have figured out what it was. What we were finding with our students is just the lack of motivation on tests that don't matter to the children, to the students. Tests that there's no scholarship involved, it's not going to have really much of an impact whether they get to college or not, like the ACT. And so it was a test that they knew that really wasn't very important, and it was a motivation issue. Quantitative data, piece of paper, test scores would not have just told me that. It was that through our school improvement groups and meetings and through the qualitative, through the discussions and interviews and talking to children, that's where we figured out what the problem was. And we found in our school, and I see you have a similar situation regarding test scores, I've noticed, and then at the high school, not as consistent. I'm not saying you're not doing a good job, it's just not as consistent. It's similar to what we had, speaking about our school district. And we found it was really a motivation issue. And so we're working around with our students and with our school improvement teams of, okay, again, I'm the kind of guy, let's call a fact a fact. Even if it's a brutal fact, lay it out on the table so we can deal with it. And so it's a motivation issue, what are we gonna do? And so that's where we're at. We're looking at, maybe have drawings for iPads and different things. You know, we're looking at that motivation factor. So you have to use both qualitative and quantitative data.
John, I found a question for you tonight. Suppose a teacher and a principal approach you about their concern over a particular student, and that student, maybe thinking about hurting himself or herself or somebody else in the building. How do you address that?
Oh, they have legal obligations, first of all. They're legal, as soon as, and I'm sure the principals know that. And if they don't, I would make sure that the principals know. As soon as something like that happens, so you're saying as a principal and a teacher hear this from a student.
Now, they're coming to you about a particular student that they're concerned about.
Oh, but the student has not come to them.
Correct.
Well, I would have them investigate that, first of all. I wouldn't get involved at that level, but I'd have them take it very serious and investigate that. And once they investigated that, then I would make sure there are certain legal things that you need to do. I mean, there are legal requirements, which I know I went on a little bit of a rant as far as some of the legislature, but these legal requirements are in there for the protection of that student, the protection of everyone that immediately that need to take place. And so I would make sure that once we dealt with that situation, that proper training was in place for all teachers, all administrators, to make sure they knew immediately what legal requirements. So if I were at a meeting at the RESD and couldn't be reached, that they would know immediately that there's certain things that they need to do. Certainly in that case, investigate it and find out what is the situation and be on top of it right away. But since it's not specific, after the investigation, certainly they would keep me informed on the situation, and we would go from there. But safety and security is the top priority. I'm very proud of, just last night at our board meeting, we partnered with our local law enforcement, and we're increasing patrol hours and patrol hours particular at our school grounds, because we had some of our kids, as good as a country school we are, that had some drugs in their car, and we're getting right on top of it, and we're taking that even very seriously. And so I am involved, and then I do my part in it as far as any communication that needs to take place. Certainly, I might work with our school attorney right away, or if I felt it was an issue that we need to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So that's another step that I might take, is working immediately with our school attorney. I would keep you as board members informed to the level that I can legally keep you informed. There may be sometimes I can't give you names, but I'm very good about keeping the board informed. We're a small community here, and so you would hear very quickly maybe that there was a situation, so I would keep you informed as well, as much as I could legally.
If there was validity to that claim, and let's say they went to the locker room or the student's locker and found a knife.
It would
How
be
do you approach
the law enforcement immediately. And again, you know what I've learned? I just shot from the hip, and I told you I don't do that. But was it a pocket knife? Was it a weapon? You know, what was the situation? Where again, there's still some subjectivity with that school administrator that I would hope would be trained, and if not, I would make sure they're trained after we dealt with the situation of okay, what kind of knife are we talking about? But if it's obvious that it's a weapon, it will be dealt with very swiftly and very promptly, and law enforcement will be involved immediately. Because those are situations that we are not trained. That there are professional people that do that, and that's the law enforcement. And we would want to send a message to our students that there's zero tolerance for that, zero. Just like our drug situation, zero tolerance.
In the few minutes we have remaining, do you have any questions for us?
Well, when I certainly have had a chance to review a lot of data, curriculum, test score wise, financially, what do you see as some of the main challenges for this person coming in this position? What do you see as, from a Board of Education perspective?
Well, from the Board of Education perspective, we've had to make some very unpopular decisions because of finances here. So that is a huge concern. The evaluation, the assessment piece is of concern because we're trying to do things with our curriculum. We have a staff of very innovative and creative people, and when they're constrained by something that we don't know, that we can't try to do things with, that's a concern because we end up hearing about it. And so the elephant in the room is financial. But things that the state, the legislature, and the governor are deciding or not deciding are issues as well.
Actually, John, we want to be the best school district in St. Clair County. We want to be at the top of everything that we do for learning. I think that was our number one goal, probably for us and our parents and our students. That's probably the top goal that we have. And then, as you said before, we'll deal with the financial because it is what it is. But most importantly, I think that we have to be at the top. We like to be at the top. We pride ourselves in what we do here with our programs.
Right.
And we want to go forward in that level. We don't want to go down. We want to continue to go up. And so.
And a compliment to you is this young lady, I won't use her name, certainly, I won't. But she said basically that, and so I want you to know that leadership from this room is transpiring through to the students, because she had a lot of pride in this school, and I think she feels you are at the top, and so it's working. But you know as well as I know, just like our state wrestling team, I respect our coach. Know what he said to him: "Enjoy today, boys, because tomorrow we're going back to work." So to remain at the top, it's ongoing work.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's fun. So, board committees now. And I'm going to the question of negotiations. Do you, at the negotiation table, use a board finance negotiation team?
Typically, no. This board has, in its history, has always acted as a committee of the whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the table, though, at the table,
No.
it's
No.
all right. Okay.
No. That's what we hire you people
Yep.
for.
We people take that.
That's
And you pay us.
That's good. That's right. We do.
No, don't worry. I work for my board president's he's a vice president of a real large company, and yeah, that will be no stranger to me. To where he reminds me, and a lot of times when I'm complaining, he will say, "Hey, did you get paid last week?" Oh, that's how I'll say, "Did you get paid last week?" Well, what are you talking about? He goes, "Did you get paid last week?" I think you're paid out. Do your job.
Right.
So don't worry. I'm reminded of that. So okay, very good.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. So, my closing statement is just this. I know I bring a little more passion and energy to these interviews. I do mellow out a little bit, but I carry a lot of passion with me, and so I get excited and up for these type of situations. So, you know, I want you to know I do level out a little bit, and I look forward to working with you and being a part of this community. I'm all psyched up and ready. I want to sing the fight song. So.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.